You're listening to Change Your POV podcast, episode 12.
The strongest 180 I ever turned was when I read The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, and there was a chapter that said to give away your talents. And once I started doing that, I started being successful. No joke.
Welcome to Change Your POV podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Change Your POV podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Lazary, and today I've got a special guest. He's a 7-time author and an Air Force enlisted PhD. I would like to welcome Dr. Rob Garcia. How you doing, Rob?
Hey, Eddie, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we found each other through some Facebook groups, and I kind of put a call to action out there for anyone that's a military entrepreneur that's interested in linking up with me and coming on the podcast, sharing their story. And you answered the call. You not only answered the call, but you kind of gave me a brief rundown of kind of your story. And I'm like, wow, you definitely have a unique story. It's very, very different. You definitely chose a unique, I'll call it career path for lack of a better term. Unique is one thing, but it's very interesting. It's very inspiring. And I'm very, very happy to have you on the show. So without further ado, why don't you tell the audience a little about you and kind of your story?
All right. Currently, I am running 2 companies from home. I am the CEO of Fitness Inked magazine, which is an online magazine for tattooed athletes and models. Real rough life. I look at bikini pictures all day, and I write about workouts and food and all kinds of fun stuff. And then I'm also a professional life coach for a company I own called Blue Dragon Enterprises. Blue Dragon focuses on just human development, whether it's careers, education, fitness, pretty much any component of human development. I've been a keynote speaker at University of Phoenix, speak in high schools, and basically I just help people in all capacities of life. I'm currently an Air Force reservist as well. I'm an E6, going on 10 years now. Did 5 active duty and then 10 in the reserves, and I'll come back to that.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit before we went on air here, and I said, man, there just can't be very many enlisted PhDs in the Air Force. And you said, how many are there?
There was something like 19 when I got mine. I got mine at 37. And there were, between 19 and 21, very low amount.
So how is that working for a lieutenant that's got his bachelor's degree?
Oof, it's brought up some interesting issues in my squadron, that's for sure. But the pilots are all pretty cool with it, but it's an odd dynamic, I'm not going to lie.
Mm-hmm.
But
cool. But yeah, before we get too crazy down that road, let's talk a little bit about your pre-military life.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up very low income in a place called Humboldt County, California, which is on the north coast up before Oregon. My family, I will say 95% of them are drug addicts or have been to prison. Definitely a very rough childhood. So I can identify with a lot of our service members who came from various impoverished backgrounds and joined the service for a better life. I left home at 18. I failed out of high school. I had to go back and go to a charter, and then I failed out of the next 2 colleges I went to. And at 19, I was sleeping on the floor, and I couldn't afford meat. I was living in Arizona. I was just very miserable, just trying to eke my way through, and I really didn't have any hope. I took the ASVAB. A couple of my buddies had joined the Air Force and told me it was great. My electronic scores were through the roof, so my sergeant brought me a bag of groceries because he saw I was kind of starving, and so he got me on that plane to Lackland. And back then it was only 6 weeks for basic training. I know the Marines and Army are going to make fun of me for that one, and they should. But when I got in, I got in. I only did one hitch, and I was a bomber maintainer, and pretty much all I did while I was active duty, and this is the first lesson I want to kind of impart to the young guys, is get as much school done as you can. And you have a lot of options while you're in, because you have tuition assistance. You can take CLEPs or Dantes, which means you can just test for credit, and they're free. Civilians have to pay for these tests, but all you have to do is go to base education, take a test, and if you pass it, you get free college credit for the 100 and the 200 division classes. As you know, when you go to your A school or you go to your technical school, you get college credits for that. You get PE credits for basic training. So there are a lot of guys that actually have some pretty good schools that will accumulate quite a few credits towards a degree. I encourage everyone, if they've been in or if they are in, to get their transcripts so they know kind of where they stand before they enroll in a program. Got out of the Air Force with a bachelor's, 2 associates, a minor, and a secret clearance. And I'm about to make this transition to go from Louisiana, my dream city of San Diego. And I have a job lined up, an interview with the TSA. And I get out, completely separate. I'm still in Louisiana. And the TSA calls me the day I'm moving. And they said that there's no longer an opening. So now I'm going. I know like one guy in San Diego.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so as you could say, it was a little bit scary making that transition, but I had to weigh my options, and I had to go for it, you know. So I made the move. I slept on a friend's couch, and I started using the GI Bill. I enrolled in a master's program within a month of moving to San Diego, and
Oh, wow.
I didn't hesitate. I went to University of Phoenix, got my master's in 23 months. I towed trucks. I sold art. I pretty much just did temp jobs and hustled for that time. I was too early for the post 9/11. Then I started teaching high school. Enrolled in a doctoral program, and I started my company, Blue Dragon Enterprises. Originally, I just started selling skateboards and clothes. That's what I like doing, skateboarding. And I joined the reserves, and then I transitioned into life coaching and writing books. And
Oh, wow.
eventually it just blossomed. I kept writing books. I kept self-publishing and getting into it. And I finally finished my doctorate at 37. And I did tech writing for a couple of years for some defense contractors. And currently I'm just 39, living my life. Trying to work with some more career transition guys in the Navy and the Marines, just so I can teach the guys out there, you know, what options they have available.
What's your PhD focus?
It's in educational leadership, and the dissertation itself, it was 108 pages long. It was on project-based learning. So I was in this weird sweet spot where I'd never gotten past college algebra, but when I got out of the Air Force, I couldn't find a job for a long time, and I had some serious qualifications. I mean, secret clearance, bomber experience. I thought for sure I was going to get a job immediately, but I didn't do the right steps, and that's why I'm hoping I can kind of pass this knowledge forward to the guys listening to your podcast. If I could go back and say, okay, this is what you did wrong, I would have told myself to look up all the defense contractors in the area. And especially look up things that are related to your either your rate, your MOS, or your AFSC, whichever service you're in, and try and find something that's an equivalent. Try and find something that's in your field. I see too many 11 Bravos, you know, Marines and soldiers, getting out and just becoming $9 an hour security guards because they don't feel like they have any skills to offer. And that's right. I think it's a bit short-sighted, and I don't blame them. A lot of these guys just don't understand where to go.
Yep.
But if they can find a defense contract company, if they can find, ammunition manufacturing, gun company, something, a rifle range, there's a lot of options out there. And then if you can't find a job, you create your job. You can get a VA loan to start your business. You can get a VA loan to buy a house. You can use a lot of your government resources. Just fill out some paperwork and, you know, find someone that can help you with it, and take that initiative. Don't get caught in a little trap like I was for a few years, just kind of drifting along aimlessly and not feeling good about my life.
So Fitness Inc. and Blue Dragon, which one, did you start them both simultaneously? Did you do one before the other?
Fitness Inc. is a military-owned company. My friend Katrina, who's an Army vet, very smart girl. She speaks Mandarin. She started Fitness Inc. as a blog. She was had some problems managing her weight, and she ended up getting gastric bypass and losing a lot of weight and became a fitness model, oddly enough. And so she started this fitness blog, and it blossomed into an online magazine, and we've had some shoots, and we're now doing monthly editions. It's going really well.
Wow. So where do you find your what do you call them? The people you, I don't know what you call them. The art Where do you find your art?
It just depends, because we're always looking for models of both sexes. We're always looking for people that are in fitness industry, like trainers. We're looking for writers to submit articles, and we're very big on supporting the veterans community. In fact, our December issue, I profiled my friend's dad, who was a decorated Green Beret with a Bronze Star.
Oh, nice.
It was a great tribute to him. She loved it. The family loved it. I wrote it in kind of a tongue-in-cheek retrospective, but she was really into it because he was kind of a badass and nobody knew it until she found some pictures.
Nice. And then Blue Dragon, that's something that looks like your baby. That thing's looks like it's got some legs, huh?
Yeah, I've had it for about 6 years, and it's really grown. I completely revamped the website, and now I've got a couple new features. You can buy brain drugs, like nootropic drugs, all natural, all healthy. I've been using them for a few years. They've really helped me out in my performance. Sell clothing, and I have something called Blue Dragon University, where I sell digital PDFs and how-tos. So let's say somebody wants to publish their own book. I can teach them how to do it by buying this module for $75 instead of paying $1,500, like I've seen some people out there charging. And I teach people entrepreneurial stuff on there. Blue Dragon University pretty much has products that can help you grow in any area. So that website is bluedragonent.com.
Okay. And you've got some publications out there. You got a media. Well, you've had some media appearances at Transworld Business Magazine, the San Diego Living Morning Show, the Men's Advocate Linda Gross radio show, and looks like you're published in Transworld Skateboard Magazine and Edutopia.
Yeah, that was a large educational blog. I gave away one of my books, the ebook for it, and just see if anyone is interested. And I ended up getting teachers from about 20 countries writing to me and wanting a copy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What did that book cover?
It was called Teen Juggernaut. It's still up on the site for free, so if anyone's got teenagers, they can grab it. But basically, I talked about what it was like growing up in a really drug-infested childhood without a lot of money, and just how I kept up my mental temerity and my spirit. And then it talks about how students can find technical careers, go to college for free, and the importance of math and why we need to teach math better.
Yeah. So you came from like you said, a broken home, a rough childhood. Like what got you from there to where you are today? I mean, besides sheer tenacity and just grit, right? Did you have any kind of mentor or individual in your life that kind of helped point in the right direction?
I've been fortunate as I got older as an adult. I had some very good people that helped me out. When I was in the Air Force, my two great friends, they actually ended up marrying each other. Mike and Dina Russell. They let me rent a room in their house, and they were they're still Mike's still active duty to live in Oklahoma. And they were very stable, and it really gave me a sense of family. They would always have the Thanksgiving dinner and holiday stuff for all the guys that didn't have families. And then when I moved to San Diego, my friend Chris McNally generously let me stay on his couch for free for a bit, because I did him a favor as a kid. We grew up together as kids, and I helped him out as a kid, and he remembered it and paid it back, and I can't thank him enough. I've just been really fortunate. I've met a lot of great guys in the Air Force and girls in the Air Force Reserve, and my best friend Jeff, a former Marine, just great people. And it really is about your battle buddies and your wingmen who help you out.
Yeah, and the friends you make in the service. I don't care if you do 4 years or 20, but the your battle buddies, and that you, at least in my experience and everyone that I've talked to, those are life friends, man, and people that you can count on. I mean, there's guys that I haven't talked to in probably 10 years, and I can call them up. It's like yesterday, you know what I mean? And they're right there, willing to help, bend over backwards, do whatever, and it's awesome to know that community and that network exists in my life, and it will forever.
Yeah, you chew the same dirt, you have the same experiences, you've gone through a lot together that most people don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
you've done more by 32 than most people do their entire life. How do you define success?
Yeah, I'm currently 39, but I've had a certain plan and drive since I got out. I got out at 26, and I've always worked 2 jobs or a job in school. To get to your question, how do I define success? Success to me is the impact you make on other people's lives. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with fame and fortune. It has to do with the relevant impact that you leave behind with other people.
Right. Well, I like that. I've heard it said many ways, but that's probably one of my favorite. So let's be honest, you can't have success without many failures. What would you say your greatest failure along the way has been?
Eddie, that's such a good question, and I think this will really resonate with a lot of your listeners. My greatest failure was listening to the negative people around me. Maybe in your listener's case, it's a supervisor or a family member, but I didn't really accept myself as an intelligent person until I was about 27 because I was a slow learner. I've always been called stupid my whole life. I've never felt like an intelligent person. I had a real high reading level, but I just process information a little differently and I take a little longer to learn stuff. But I never felt like a smart person. And people that initially work with me and meet me, they think they just don't really understand. And so when I finally hit that point where I was like, wow, dude, you kind of do understand this stuff and you can kind of figure this out, and maybe you're not as dumb as these people tell you, and maybe it's not a big deal that you failed out of high school and you failed out of college. You had a horrible family, you had an uncle breaking into your room to buy steal stuff to buy meth. I mean, it's people don't have this growing up, like they don't understand. So I would encourage people, especially with rough childhoods, to get some therapy and to start feeling better about themselves and to start realizing that if you got a plan, you got to surround yourself with positive people. You can't tell people about everything you're going to do because the negative ones are going to voice their opinion, and their opinions suck. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Yep. And I can't remember where I heard it, but I heard somewhere that you are the sum of the 5 people that you choose to surround yourself with, right?
You're the third person that's told me that, and it's so true. Obviously, it's true because people are saying it,
Yep. Okay, so you've got books, you've got magazines, you've got 2 businesses, you've got your PhD, you're a successful guy, and you know as well as I do that when you're pursuing goals or dreams or projects or businesses, not everything you do is going to succeed. So my question is, at what point or how do you know when to pull the plug or when to keep driving and push through those difficult times?
Eddie, it really boils down to quality of life. Especially as an entrepreneur, you're taught to take risks. You're taught to push through the perseverance and the lean years or lean months. But the way I kind of assess if something's not working out, I look at, is it affecting the quality of my life? Can I pay my rent? And is anyone else suffering because of this? And I would say if you have a family or children, you need to really watch your risk. You need to really watch how far you're going to go. Me, I can take bigger risks. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. So it's just me out there. If I starve, I starve. I'm okay with that. Yeah, it's really about the impact of what the negative parts are going to bring to your life.
Right. So it's kind of a risk analysis that you do on yourself, right? And at the end of the day, too, you have to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Oftentimes, people just dwell on something and they think terrible thoughts, but when they, get down to brass tacks and they ask themselves, what's the worst that can happen? And if they're honest about the answer, oftentimes they'll realize that there's not a whole lot, right? I mean, there's not going to be a whole lot that really goes wrong if something fails. And at the end, you can't have success without failure. I mean, that's the way it is. Nobody is successful on the first go. You might have a home run here or there, and something might go much better than you planned, but the way it works for most people is you're just going to try and fail, and then eventually work to a success. But I've also told, or I might have heard this, there's no such thing as succeeding and failing. There's only succeeding and learning, right?
I completely agree. I look at my failures as life lessons. I've never really made a bad mistake that I look back on and regret it. I've had my ups and downs, and I'm still kind of in this period where I'm still growing these companies and kind of teaching myself how to do this stuff. I recently lost my day job. I'm talking like 5 weeks ago. This is very transitional right now, running these 2 companies from my home, but I have this ability right now to do this, and I put all my chips in, and I said, okay, I'm going to give it my best 2 months I can. I'm going to be my own boss and play a game called See What Happens. And I've had some pretty big wins. Been on the radio 4 times in the last month. I've signed some pretty high-level clients, including a Navy SEAL for a book I'm writing. I've joined a couple of entrepreneurial groups, but basically, I'm just trying to think smarter. I'm trying to connect with people like you, and I'm trying to give. And that's really one component that veterans can learn is that everyone can make a difference with their time, with their resources. Even if you don't have any money, go to the VA hospital, go visit some kids at the high school, do something, but you can make an impact on someone's life just by giving your time.
And I've found that if it's true giving, right? If a lot of people give for the expectation of reciprocation, right? But if that's why you're giving, it's going to be empty. It's going to be hollow. It's going to be meaningless for you and the receiving party. But if you're truly giving of yourself, of your time, of whatever. A lot of people say, oh, well, I don't make a lot of money. I don't have, money to give. Well, money is just one method of giving, right? I mean, it doesn't take money to, like you said, walk down to the veterans home and, serve a Thanksgiving dinner or a Christmas dinner, or just go down there and just chat it up with an old timer that hasn't, talked to anybody, in weeks probably. I mean, there's just tons of things that you could do to give back. And if you're giving for the right reasons, it just, I don't know, you could believe in karma or not, or you can call it karma or whatever else, but if you give, it will always have a way of coming back to you at some level.
It always has, and I've stopped expecting it. And really, it's 90% of my products I have given away, and people can always hit me up for a free consultation if they ever need anything. I give consultations on everything. Maybe they're starting a business and have a question. Maybe they want to know where to go to school for free. Maybe they need me to go talk to their teenager and straighten them out a little, But
yeah.
I like I said, most of my services are free, and especially if somebody is at a bad place in life, I'm not going to try and profit off that. I'd rather just see him succeed and win.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Blue Dragon University. So you mentioned there's different modules or nodes or disciplines. Can you talk about each of those and kind of if somebody come into your site, or what type of person might be interested in what you have to offer?
Yeah, basically, I made these really nicely designed. They're basically like mini. You can think of them as mini university courses, mini modules, like how-tos, and they're all different things. Every one of them depends on a different subject matter. So I've got a lot of people come to me and ask, like, how do I get into life coaching? Because they're giving out a lot of advice and they've got this figured out. They've got their processes down, and a lot of people are turning to them for advice. So I just formalized the process, and I said, okay, if you buy this module, I'll teach you how to establish what kind of life coach. I'll teach you how to do pricing. I'll teach you how to make goods and services under your brand. I'll teach you how to start your website. I'll teach you how to get media appearances, all this stuff. So a person that wants to go into an entrepreneurial venture can drop, $50, $60, get one of these modules, and they will have everything start to finish. They will know exactly how to get into this business, and they'll have some top level PhD level coaching. And I always stand by my products, money back guarantee and free consulting if they need it. They can always contact me and ask me for any of the small details, to help them out.
Nice. And as an entrepreneur myself, and you could attest to this, oftentimes it just comes down to you don't know what you don't know, right?
Absolutely. There are times. You know what I heard that was very smart from Gary Vaynerchuk is to assess yourself, figure out what your strengths and aptitudes are, and then outsource your weaknesses. And my God, that's true. That's I've learned some very hard lessons the last 5 weeks, and one of the lessons is kind of in that vein, because I've realized that I'm a good reader, I'm a good synthesizer of information, I'm a terrible designer, and I'm not super good with websites. And so I just outsource it to somebody. I use a consulting company called Fiverr, and $30, and I can get a professionally made, graphically good looking PDF. And instead of me just kind of thumbing through it, not knowing what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. And I totally concur with that. As a matter of fact, the intro and outro of this podcast was done by a gentleman, and I'll put his contact information in the show notes, a link to his site. So if you've got a podcast or you're interested in doing a voiceover for a commercial or something, because I knew that I could have done it myself, but I wouldn't have been the best at it. So I used Fiverr, and it cost me all of about $25. And that's granted, I'm a relatively new podcaster. I've only got 5 live shows up right now, and I've got probably 6 interviews in a can, and I got another 6 interviews scheduled between now and Sunday. It's Friday night, and so I'm definitely, it's growing, it's getting some traction. I've got a lot of interest, but when I do ask people for feedback, that's like the first thing they say is, "Wow, I really like your intro and your outro. Like, where'd you have that done? It's very professional." when I tell them, Fiverr and it costs me $25 and they can't believe it. But to your point, figure out what you're good at, capitalize on that, figure out what your weaknesses are, and find out how you can have somebody else do that for you.
Exactly. And then if somebody comes to you, you can teach them what you know. You can work out a barter system pretty easily. I've got a guy that does my sales funnels and some SEO and some landing page stuff. This is stuff I have no experience with. I've just always been the guy that can read really fast and can take 5 sources of information and turn it into an amazing product. That is my strength. I'm really good at it, and that's why I write books and create modules. I've always been in education.
Well, so there you have it. You've got a guy that's a PhD. He's got, all kinds of stuff in his portfolio, but he's smart enough to know where his limits are and knows how to ask for help. All right. And that's more important. I mean, that's probably the biggest takeaway is, and especially with veterans too. And when I say not just asking for help, with a business or something like that, but just with anything, just with life in general, you've got to swallow your pride, come to grips with the fact that you can't do everything on your own. You don't have all the answers. You need people in your life that can help provide the assistance that you need or the answers that you don't have. And it's okay to ask for help. I mean, you got a PhD with an MBA that's got, his a resume like Dr. Rob has, and he's smart enough to know that he's got to ask for help. I mean, that's just a lesson that everybody listening to this could take away from. It's about understanding, like you said, what back to Gary said, is maximizing your maximum potential with what you're good at. You're good at education. You're good at being able to teach, but you might not be able to figure out how to put that onto a website. But that doesn't make you less of a teacher, or doesn't make you less knowledgeable about the subject, right?
Right. It means I'm inexperienced, and that's where a lot of people get intelligence wrong. Is that they say things like, "Oh, I'm really stupid at this," or "I'm really dumb, I can't figure this out," and really just it means you haven't tried, you haven't had any hands-on on it.
Yep. All right, Dr. Rob, let's talk about you've got a lot of history, a lot of background knowledge. I'm sure you've got a ton of resources that you could share with those listening service members that are either looking at transitioning out of the military or have recently transitioned and are just looking for some help. Do you got any type of resources you can share with the audience?
Absolutely. There are actually, I go to these veterans websites and I see guys writing in that they're trying to go through the VA and get these vocational courses approved, and it takes them months and months and months, and that's ridiculous. So here's how we're going to cut out the VA completely. If your listeners can Google Department of Labor Apprenticeship Program and then just click on the first link that pops up, there is a federal database of every apprenticeship in America. So they just Google Department of Labor Apprenticeship Program and then click on Become an Apprentice, and then a map will pop up provided by, I believe it's Glassdoor, and the map shows you can just pick whatever region you're in or whatever state you're going to go to, and it'll pop up every single apprenticeship that is offered and listed in the National Registry.
Nice. Wow. That's huge.
Yeah, so I use that one when I'm talking to vets and just to kind of teach them. And then another secret, if you know what state you're going to or the state you're living in, wherever you're gonna hang your hat, every state has a Department of Labor state site, and it's sometimes called Department of Industrial Relations, either one, but they also will list all the apprenticeships. Now, this is a state site, not federal, but if you just Google your state and then apprenticeship programs or Department of Labor, you can find that listing and you can find some free training programs. And a lot of these programs, they pay you to learn because you're joining a union.
Well, that's huge. And that's big because a lot of people think that they're only good for, law enforcement type jobs or federal or government jobs or, what do you call those guys down on like a border patrol or something like that. But you know what? There's, hundreds of thousands of servicemen and women that are transitioning out of the military, and let's be honest, not everybody wants to be a cop, right? I mean, there's kind of a misconception with a lot of the civilian population that, don't worry, that, you're qualified. You can just become a police officer or something. It's like, well, maybe you can, but not everybody wants that. And so this is an excellent resource, it sounds like, that you can hop onto and get a listing of anything and everything that you could probably be. And there's probably stuff on there you wouldn't even have considered until you actually saw that there's an apprenticeship for it, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And the best part is, Eddie, is that these don't require your GI Bill benefits at all.
So you can kind of put that away for a later date and use that at some point in the future, huh?
Give it to your spouse, give it to your kids, or you could do that. And while we're talking about the GI Bill, here's something that some people might not think about. The GI Bill in the post 9/11 format pays you BAH at the E5 level with dependents. Now, what this means is that BAH changes wherever state you're in. So there are some states that pay you a lot of BAH. Number one is San Francisco, coming in at just under $4,000 a month. That's your housing, and they pay your tuition. And then second is New York City. So those are the highest BAH rates in the nation. The lowest are Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and Fort Smith, Arkansas. So I did a little search today because if a service member is getting out and they have a choice of where to move, why not move to a place that pays you a lot of BAH where you can still find decent housing? San Diego is something like $2,600 a month, which isn't bad. So just saying, if somebody's getting out, look at the BAH rate if you're going to use the post 9/11 bill.
And do you think there's any direct correlation to the larger BAH rate and the level of education or the accredited colleges in that area?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly population centers and how big the metropolitan area is. And
okay.
Yeah, it just has to do with it because obviously places that are bigger have more expensive housing. And so BAH has got to reflect that.
And it's important, though, too, to consider not just, areas to utilize your BAH, but, especially if you're a wounded veteran, you want to be somewhere that has a VA hospital and other VA services, readily available. I know one of my guys that's out now, and he said that the closest VA is like 2.5 hours away. So,
wow.
He's a wounded veteran, and he could definitely utilize those services. But he's an hourly employee, and he was like, I don't make a lot of money. I work paycheck to paycheck. I can't justify leaving work to drive to the VA because it's money out of my pocket and money away from my family. So that's tough. When I transitioned, I did 10 years in the Army. When I transitioned out, I literally thought about transitioning, 30 days before I actually did it. And by the time that happened, I just came back off a deployment to Iraq, and I basically was we redeployed. I had just enough time to get our equipment off of the train, and all of our equipment and stuff turned back in. And then I had to clear CIF, and anyone that has ever dealt with CIF knows how fun that is. And of course, I lived off post, so I had to figure out how to get a moving company to pack my stuff, and I had to figure out where I was going to move to and where I was going to live and what job I was going to get, if any. And I had a wife and 2 kids and no education. And so, I was literally scrambling the last 30 days. And then when I finally got out, I'm like, great, I've got everything's gone now. I mean, you don't realize the things that you no longer have until you no longer have them. Like I couldn't just go to sick call if I got sick. I couldn't, there was no, chow hall to go eat at. There was no first sergeant no first sergeant to go talk to help me out. I mean, it was all gone. They took my ID card and they stamped my paper and they said, "Thank you for your service. Have a nice day." and it was just, so many people that I talked to, they just don't start thinking about that transitioning period until it's too late. So my question to you is, what do you recommend for anyone of any service or any branch of service that transitioning out of the military is inevitable? Even if you do 20 years and you retire, at the end of the day, you're still going to get out of the military. Everyone has to transition out. I mean, that's just life. So how far in advance would you recommend somebody start looking at these things and start taking transition into consideration?
7 months. Because you need time to scour the area you're going to go to. You need time to send out resumes and job applications. You need time to figure out where you're going to live. And then there's all the other stuff. If you have a family, like look at your case, there's a lot extra when you've got a wife and kids, and you got to take care of their needs as well. You got to make sure you're moving into a big enough place. But yeah, about 7 months sounds about right. And you got to line up some prospects and see what's going on. Don't be that guy that waits 2 months, and don't assume the military is going to fix everything for you.
Yes.
The military does a great job of taking care of our troops, but they can't do it all. And you got to stand on your own 2 feet, and you got to have that independence.
Yeah, so if you, yeah, I totally agree. If you're standing there waiting for somebody to tap you on the shoulder and tell you, "Oh, you've got to go to transition, the transition center to meet with somebody that's going to help you with your," no one's going to do that for you. You got to start. I mean, you may not even be aware of the services that are provided to you. You got to seek that out. You got to go ask somebody, and sometimes, don't stop at the first person you ask either. You can go to your platoon sergeant, and maybe they don't know. Keep asking. There's stuff out there. If there was, I'll put you on the spot here. This isn't one of the questions we covered, but if you were to pick 3 things 7 months in advance that all service members should do or consider, what would those 3 things be?
Decide whether you're going to do one of the big 3, whether you're going to start a business, go to school, or start a career. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So whichever one you're going to do, you need to pick that, and then start working towards that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is figure out where you're going to live. So that's not only like the state, city, but where, apartment, house, you're going to get a VA loan, you're going to rent.
Mm-hmm.
And then thirdly, I would get all the information about your benefits available to you before you're going to get out. So all the stuff about VA loans, about business loans, about the GI Bill. Maybe you get some TRICARE at the end. There's, you need to find out what you're going to have and what's going to run out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because benefits are benefits, and the nice thing about benefits are they're there if you take advantage of them, and they're there if you don't take advantage of them. They're yours, right? I mean, you are entitled to those benefits, but if you don't take advantage of them, then it's your loss. No one else is gonna lose out on that except for you.
No, absolutely. And I took advantage when I was active duty. I did everything in my power to get my education. And that means Kleps and Dantes. That means going to school, on campus, off campus, whatever I had to do, just to get it done. And there's so many loopholes you can find to getting your degree. There's no reason why a service member can't get their education. And on that note, just a little side tip, I strongly suggest that service members really focus on getting a degree that's in demand. So don't just get the degree to get it. Get something that is something science, math, engineering related. And if you're not a math guy or girl, that's okay. At least go for finance and business. Because if you get one of these obscure degrees, liberal arts, Russian studies, something like that, unless you're going to teach that as a college professor, you're going to be serving coffee. Let's be honest.
So how does somebody that knows little about, I mean, because I'll use myself as an example. I did 10 years in the Army, and, I could, very stealthily find my way to the top of an observation post, and I could, very effectively identify the enemy, and I could call in close air support and even, fixed wing aircraft, and I could successfully engage and destroy the enemy. But I knew nothing about what was a marketable, a profession that was in demand. How would somebody like me be able to know what's a good, I mean, because let's be honest, you're not going to be able to walk into a college and say, hey, I want a degree it's like walking into the recruiter's office. I'd be like, oh yeah, here you go. I'm going to hook you up with the best job ever, right? So sometimes you can't talk to the people at the college to get these right answers. So what resource could the average person getting out of the military that really doesn't understand, education and what's in demand in terms of out there post-military?
Anything in the math and sciences is going to be in demand. Mathematics, finance, things like that. And one thing that you mentioned, did you go to a SEER school, survival school?
No, I went to a scout leaders course at Fort Knox.
Okay.
And I went to basic training, and then of course the non-commissioned officer courses, PLDC and BNOC, the basic non-commissioned officer courses.
Roger. I was just going to say, because a lot of times the guys and girls have gone to survival school or have done things like that, they can get hired as defense contractors on base for certain recon teams, SEAL teams, things like that, and they can teach survival skills. That's just one of the many ways that you can transition your MOS into something workable. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about, and this is especially to 11 Bravos and helicopter mechanics, this is something I stumbled into that I wish I'd have known years earlier. There's a career field field that not a lot of people know about called technical writing. And basically, every company that's a defense contractor or a military supplier, they need people to come in with experience from the military and write these documents and write these operational manuals and these guides. And basically, they're looking for either an English/writing background or some type of military experience. You don't have to be the best writer in the world in every case. You'll get trained. But technical writing is a huge industry, and it starts off usually about 22 to 30 bucks an hour. It's a very high paying industry.
Wow.
So I would strongly suggest, if you're an 11 Bravo or you have one of those MOSs where you're kind of not sure what it could transition to, put some feelers out for some tech writing jobs. Just go to Indeed.com, type in your zip code, and just put in technical writer and see what pops up. Because I've done technical writing at 3 companies, and it's always been a really great, relaxing job. It's actually really fun.
Interesting. Never heard that or considered that. That's pretty cool. Sounds like something I would have probably liked to have gotten into. But and then the other recommendation I have, having gone through and got my bachelor's degree and my MBA, general degrees are nice to have, but there is more money if you can niche down your degree. And what I mean by that, an MBA is a master's in business administration, which is a fairly general degree. It's a good degree to have, and it opens a lot of doors of opportunity. But if you could get a degree that niches down a little bit, or an MBA with a concentration or some type of a master's certificate in something, then what that does is it makes you more of a valued commodity because there's fewer of you, right? So it's the law of scarcity. The fewer of something there is, the more valuable it is.
Eddie, you're completely right, because what you're doing is you're creating a marketable and rare skill when you niche yourself down. That's such a great point. The degrees, if someone just asked me on the street and said, "Hey Rob, what degrees should I go for that's in demand, that pays well?" Just right off the bat, I would tell them nursing, engineering, or computer science. Those are the 3 that pay the most. Anytime you look at the highest paying jobs, it's always engineering, or about 8 out of 10 of those jobs. And if you're not strong at math, like I said, go for finance and business at the very least.
And those types of jobs are also not as impacted by the fluctuation in the economy. I mean, every job is going to feel the impacts of a down economy, but there's always going to be need for the medical industry, the nurses, the doctors, the clinicians, right? There's always going to be, so start asking yourself in terms of industries to get into, what are some types of jobs that will feel little effect when you start having the ebbs and flows of the economy. I was in a defense contracting company right when all the sequestration and downsizing happened, and they started closing down Air Force bases. And of course, a lot of what we were building were for the Air Force, so we lost a lot of government contracts. There was a lot of layoffs. So, defense. No, I'm not knocking defense contracting companies, but there is a risk there that if there's a downturn in defense spending, as there was in my case, there's going to be that impact that be felt. And I wasn't laid off, but I was, a manufacturing supervisor, and there was people that I counted on to build product every day that were laid off, and it just gets into this routine of hiring frenzy to lay off to hiring frenzy to. So it's just a tough industry to be in, unless the economy is stable, or unless the economy is really, really peaked. So just be kind of cautious of that as you enter into the civilian. I mean, I think the takeaway there is get your pulse on what's going on outside the military, because when you're in the Army or any branch, you really don't have to worry about a whole lot. You're taking orders, you're executing, you're letting other people above you kind of make the decisions for you, where you're going, how long you're going to be there, and when you're coming home. And you don't really have to think too much about what the economy is doing and what's going on in the news and the world. But I would suggest in that 7-month period, start paying a little bit closer attention to, the markets, the business, what's going on in the world, what's going on out there. So it will help you make better, more educated decisions.
Yeah, and for the people that are able to, you might want to consider the reserves too. If you've been active the whole time and you get out for a little bit and have a little break in service, the reserves offers the chance to still serve. You get a partial GI Bill. You get new training, a new tech school, a whole new set of skills. And for me, it's been very, very rewarding. I get trips to Korea every single year. It's actually kind of fun.
So you have that. It's almost kind of it's almost kind of a weaning off period between active and cold turkey into the civilian world, right?
Yeah. It was definitely a challenge because you pretty much sink or swim. You're kind of on your own. You've given up on all the resources that have been protecting you and taking care of you for years. So you gotta figure out your network. You gotta figure out what you have available to you.
We're wrapping up here. Thank you so much, Dr. Rob, for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate all your insights and all the information and valuable content you provide to the listeners. A lot of things to think about, and moreover, a lot of actionable things. People that can, tomorrow go out, or today even, go out and start doing some of these things. Put together your 7-month, get out of the military plan, hop on and start taking some courses. I mean, there's just a ton of things you can do to prepare yourself. But at the end of the day, the word there is prepare yourself, right? No one's going to do it for you. You've got to take the reins and get it done yourself, and ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask for help. So on that note, where can our listeners find you, Dr. Rob?
They can just find me on my main site, which is bluedragonent.com, bluedragonent.com. Feel free to write to me, ask me questions about anything, really. I've helped out a lot of people with a lot of different problems in my career, and if you're a veteran, I will not charge you.
Nice. Very cool. Hey, thanks for that. So I always ask my guests a question at the end of the show, and so here it is. Give us an example or a scenario of a time when you believed or thought something one way, but an event or circumstance occurred that forced you to see it from a different perspective that ultimately changed your original perception. What was it, and what did you learn from that experience?
The strongest 180 I ever turned was when I read The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill, and there was a chapter that said to give away your talents. And once I started doing that, I started being successful. No joke. I started volunteering more. I started offering services for free, and people were amazed because they don't expect someone to just give willingly. And when people learn to do that, and you focus on solving other people's problems and giving what I call the 3-to-1 ratio, where you're offering 3 times what you're ever asking from somebody, you're going to see wild success.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming out and checking out this episode. I wanted to thank our special guest, Dr. Rob, for coming on the show and sharing his story, providing us with a ton of great information. You can find everything that we talked about on the show notes over at changeyourpov.com/episode 12. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at eddie@changeyourpov.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. All right. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.